Everyone scared that AI is gonna take their jobs. But can AI replace the unemployed? So I'm letting ChatGPT take on a Pokémon FireRed Randomizer Nuzlocke. Every battle, every move, every decision, all made by AI. Can ChatGPT become the next Pokémon champion? First, ChatGPT decided that his name will be Ashen and his rival Blaze. For starter Pokémon, the three options were Skitty, Octillery, and Rhydon. Ashen chose Octillery and named it Kraken. Blaze, the rival, got the Skitty. Before heading out, Blaze decided to challenge ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT is ready for his first fight in the run. Octillery for now only knows water gun, so I didn't ask any question to ChatGPT and just spam it. After 2 turns, Kraken was able to defeat Skitty and Ashen got his first victory. In Route 1, we had our first encounter of the run, a Slowking, and its name was decided to be Regal. Then Ashen insisted of getting another encounter in Route 22 before facing the rival. We got a Rhyhorn in Route 22 named Titan. Blaze then decided that he wanted a rematch, but unfortunately for him, he only was able to catch a small Kakuna. Initially, ChatGPT wanted to use Confusion, a move that Regal hadn't learned yet. But after explaining Regal's moveset, ChatGPT decided to stack some curses to make Regal an unstoppable force. Therefore, then we just spam Toggle and defeated our rival. Before heading into the Viridian Forest, we had one last encounter, a Tyranitar named Obsidian. Obsidian will be a game changer for our friend Ashen. Then ChatGPT faced Brock for the first patch. Kraken easily defeated Brock's Arcane with Water Gun. Then Obsidian, by just using Bite, defeated Brock Ace Bellsprout without any issue. Then ChatGPT decided to not be scammed by the Magikarp guy, probably didn't understand that it can be anything. Got the Kabutops named Sky. A guy named Super Nerd challenged us to a battle for a fossil. Here, ChatGPT found the secret for winning all of his opponents, spamming Bite with Obsidian. It will be his favorite move and use it in almost all of the fights. Therefore, this super nerd was easily defeated and Obsidian rise to the top. Blaze never learns, so he decided to challenge Ashen again. This time Blaze starts with a Slugma. Obsidian uses signature move Bite, while Slugma uses Yo. Blaze's next Pokemon is a Tyranitar. Obsidian is higher level, so he should be able to defeat it easily. Although ChatGPT seemed to have forgotten his intelligence, he decided to wait until Obsidian woke up without making any moves. Meanwhile, Blaze Tyranitar continued chipping down Obsidian. Once Obsidian woke up, ChatGPT decided to use Screech instead of attacking. While Obsidian was using Screech, Blaze kept attacking, reducing Obsidian HP to a very low level. Here I was trying to explain to him that Obsidian doesn't deal enough damage, and at this rate he will lose the fight. If Obsidian fades, the run will become much more difficult and ChatGPT will be in trouble. There are a lot of convincing and back and forth. Once Obsidian HP dropped to 5, ChatGPT finally decided to switch Pokemon. We almost lost the most powerful Pokemon of the run. Therefore, it was time for Titan. Titan almost died from one bite. Again, ChatGPT didn't want to switch and insisted on attacking with Titan. As a result, we lost our first Pokemon of the run, Titan. Finally, ChatGPT made a correct move and switched on to Kraken. Kraken with Water Gun was able to defeat Tyranitar without any issue. Blaze then decided to send out Feebas. ChatGPT decided to not change Kraken and leave it out. So Kraken just continue attacking with Water Gun and use Coast Drink as well, forgetting that Feebas is actually Water type and is not dealing any damage. Kraken was finally able to defeat Feebas with just 6 HP. Rival then changed to Skiddy and ChatGPT changed to Regal. So Regal was just spamming Tackle without doing any damage and then used Yawn to make Skiddy sleepy. Continue by just pressing Tackle every time until Skiddy got fainted. And then fight Misty. Here ChatGPT lead with Regal while Misty used Plus. Here it seems that ChatGPT forgot that he plays Nuzlocke and thought that Pulse was a Water type for some reason. ChatGPT decided to attack with Tackle. Tackle didn't do enough damage, so I explained to him that he has Confusion as well, so he decided to use Confusion for the rest of the battle. The last Pokemon of Misty was a Leaky Tank, so again Regal was just using Confusion. That's how ChatGPT was able to get the second patch. Before heading to the third gym, ChatGPT face Blaze once more. This time in a cruise ship. Blaze didn't stand a chance, and ChatGPT was able to defeat him without any issue. ChatGPT team looks unstoppable. Third gym leader didn't have any Pokemon that could cause us any trouble. So ChatGPT was able to defeat him very easily, and that's how ChatGPT caught the third patch. In the rock tunnel cave, ChatGPT found a Metang and wanted to get it. Metang was using takedown, so it got a lot of damage from recoil. Kraken was using constraint to get the Metang low. ChatGPT was throwing a Pokeball without any use. Kraken got to 4 HP, so he asked ChatGPT if he wanted to continue, and decided just throw a ball. So that's how ChatGPT lost Kraken. Next, it was Fossil. Metang continued using takedown, and Fossil just throwing Pokeballs. Pokeballs didn't have any use. Here ChatGPT is close on losing Fossil as well. Unfortunately, ChatGPT was unable to get Metang. Blaze once more wanted a rematch, but unfortunately for him, the fight was too easy and he didn't have any losses. Next, ChatGPT got a Fatni named Titanic. ChatGPT is ready to face Erika for the 4th gym badge. Obsidian has learned a new move, Rock Slide. So instead of spamming bite all the time, ChatGPT decided to try spamming road slide. It seems to have worked, and ChatGPT earned another badge. Obsidian soloed Giovanni without any issue. Obsidian will carry the whole run. Snorlax was a Milotic named Ripple. The second Snorlax was a Fortress. So ChatGPT tried to catch it instantly by just throwing a Pokeball. This guy though tried to take Obsidian with him using self-destruct. Blaze never learns, so once again he challenged Ashen to a battle. He starts by using a Magnemite and ChatGPT Obsidian. Obsidian starts with his legendary move, Bite, and flinch the Magnemite. Magnemite was easily defeated by Obsidian, so Blaze chose to use Lapras next. ChatGPT decided as well to switch Pokemon and use Beacon, as it counters Lapras using Spark. Lapras used Perish Song. ChatGPT decided to switch to Obsidian, as Lapras will faint due to Sandstorm. Blaze's next Pokemon was a Nidorino. Obsidian almost one-shotted Nidorina using Cross Slide. Blaze's next Pokemon was a Blissey, so ChatGPT wanted to use a Ripple. Ripple used Water Pulse, but didn't do enough damage, so Blissey used Sync and put Ripple to sleep. ChatGPT decided to just spam Recover until Ripple wakes up. So ChatGPT just spam Water Pulse until Blissey gets low. Once again Blissey made Ripple to sleep. So ChatGPT decided again to spam Recover until Ripple wakes up. Again, Blizzard put Ripple to sleep, and this matchup seemed to never end. Finally, Blizzard got fainted, and the next Pokemon of place is Delcatty. ChatGPT decided to stay with Ripple. Delcatty was able to defeat Ripple using double slap, something that neither I, neither ChatGPT was expecting. So next Pokemon is Obsidian to finish the fight. Obsidian is paralyzed and in love, so it loses a lot of moves. Finally, Delcatty was fainted by using mostly Sandstorm. A random guy gave us Espeon and Elite. Next, it was Giovanni. He starts with a Machoke. ChatGPT decided to use Rock Slide, but no moves were left for it. So after some discussing with ChatGPT, decided to use his signature move, Bite. Vital Throw almost kill Obsidian, so Obsidian has no other option than to be switched out. The switch will be Hollow. Hollow use Fly. Machoke used Revenge and take down Hollow. It's not looking good for ChatGPT as Beacon and Obsidian are very low. So ChatGPT decided to use Sky. Here, for some reason, ChatGPT thought that Sky had Horn Attack, so he asked to use Horn Attack. So I explained to him that he does not have Horn Attack and what moves it has. So I decided to use Machop. Machop take down Machop. Next, it was an Azumarill. So again he chose to use Machop, which does not do any damage to Azumarill. Rather than changing strategy, ChatGPT decided to spam Machop until he takes down Azumarill. Thankfully for him it worked. The next Pokemon is a Coffin, So he tries to use matchup, which is not effective at all. Decided to switch to scratch. Coughing use smoke screen, so he will delay. Scythe got poison. It's not looking good for ChatGPT, as he can lose Scythe as well. ChatGPT does not want to change Pokemon and continue using Scratch. Finally, he decided to switch to Titanic. His move will be Flail. The last Pokemon of Giovanni is Maitena. He decided to not switch Pokemon and stay with Titanic. Titanic use again Flail. Titanic got really low with 25 HP. Here I was asking ChatGPT what he wanted to do, but he didn't want to change Pokemon and asked to use Takedown. Here I make a mistake and use Flame rather than Takedown that he asked. Luckily, Maitena didn't attack at all. Titanic stayed with 2 HP. So I had a long discussion with ChatGPT what will be the strategy. I explained to him that Maitena outspeed him, so he decided to switch to Sky. Explain again that Scythe is with Poisonous and 2 low HP. Then for some reason decided to change with Echo, a Pokemon that we don't have in our party. Finally, he understood the situation and decided to switch to Sky. Luckily for him, Giovanni didn't really attack us, so Maitena lost due to Sandstorm. That was very lucky for ChatGPT, and it survived once more. Sabrina and Coca were easily defeated by just using Obsidian, Bite and Rock Slime. In Route 21, ChatGPT was able to get a Sneasel. Sneasel name was decided to be X. In Pokemon Mansion, ChatGPT got a Tropius named Kanobi. He got a Saflora named Solara. The blend questions were too easy for him. He started fighting Blade. Ripple used Submission and was able to one-shot Sharped. is Electrode. Here Plane had a type advantage, although ChatGPT insisted on not changing Pokemon. He wanted as well to use Double Slap, a move that Rebel didn't learn yet. After explaining that he cannot use Double Slap, he decided to use Surf. Rebel was able to defeat Voltron, and the next Pokemon is a Doduo. He decided to not change Pokemon and just use Submission. Doduo Peck was able to defeat Rebel. So ChatGPT lost another Pokemon. So ChatGPT decided to switch again on Obsidian, clearing the battle. Careful, Obsidian just spammed Rock Slide until he defeated the duo. So Obsidian just used Bite and almost one-shotted Love Disc. Lane used a Hyper Potion just to delay his defeat. One last bite and ChatGPT got the 7th patch. Final patch, ChatGPT faced Giovanni again. He starts with Canopy. Canopy used Magical Leaf and almost defeated Sudowoodo. So by just targeting Magical Leaf, Canopy was able to defeat the first opponent. Giovanni decided to stay with Canopy and use Magical Leaf. Seems that it was the correct move. Next is Bailey. He decided to stay and use Stomp. I reminded that he has flying move as well, Fly. So he used Fly. Unfortunately, he lost Canopy by a body slam from Bailey, surviving to 1 HP. So, as always, when in trouble, just use Obsidian. Obsidian had upgraded Bite to Crunch, so he spammed Crunch, one-shotted Sentret, Giovanni here delayed his defeat by resting. That's how Obsidian and ChatGPT got the final patch. Next is the Pokémon League. Blaze never learns and challenge ChatGPT once again before heading to the Pokémon League. This time ChatGPT tried to play safe, so he started with Supersonic to make Dragonair confused. Then decided to use Spark and paralyze the Dragonair. Then ChatGPT decided just to spam flail. This will lead to Dragonair to faint. Next, it was Nikada. ChatGPT tries Spark, but it doesn't affect him. So he decided to use Surf and finish the battle. Next, it was a Corsola, so for sure Pigon had to use Spark. Unfortunately though, he uses Mirror Code and we lost Pigon. ChatGPT is in trouble, he just switched to Obsidian. Obsidian used Rock Slide and won against his first opponent. Then it was a Clefairy, so ChatGPT just decided to spam Crunch. Then it was a Coughing and Obsidian used Rock Slide. Here Blaze tried to take out our ace before the Pokémon League, but he failed. Finally, it was Blaze ace Delcati and Obsidian just spam Crunch until we won the game. Finally, ChatGPT got his last encounter in the victory row, and it was a Totodile, and he decided to name it Torrent. ChatGPT finally reached to Elite 4. This will be his team. First, of course, is Obsidian, he says. Then it was Solara. Next, it was Fossil, a Pokemon that he rarely used. Torrent, the new addition to our team. Titanic, and finally Vex. Unfortunately, I forgot to record some footage of the Lorelei battle, but I can describe what happened. ChatGPT tried to Solar Beam with Solara, but lost the battle against Spearow. Obsidian defeated Spearow. ChatGPT wanted to use Earthquake against Vaporeon. Vaporeon one-shotted Titanic, so it's the second time an ice sink Titanic. Torrent won against Vaporeon and Fossil won against Blastoise. Now we go back to the recording where Fossil is facing a Slowking. ChatGPT decided to use Water Pulse and did a 0 damage to Slowking. Here I ask ChatGPT if he wants to change Pokemon or change move, and he says just stay in and use Metal Claw. What we did, Fossil got confused and got hurt, and Slowking was able to defeat Fossil, so we lost another Pokemon. ChatGPT decided to send Vex. ChatGPT decided just to spam Slash with Vex. And that's how we lost Vex. It's not looking good for ChatGPT. It has only Torrent and Obsidian for the rest of Elite 4. He switched to Torrent. Torrent tried Spikes, but that's how he lost Torrent as well. The only Pokemon left now is Obsidian. Can Obsidian carry ChatGPT to victory? Comment below. Obsidian used Rock Slide and was able to win against Slowking. The last Pokemon was a Starmie. First, ChatGPT decided to attack with Rock Slide, a rock type move against water. I don't understand what is his strategy. At least in the end, he understands that he made the wrong choice and used Crunch and one-shotted Starmie. Obsidian now has to fight all remaining Elite members without any help. For some unknown reason, he thought Fire was strong against Rock and used Crunch. At least in the end, he understood that he made a mistake and understand that Rock is super effective against Fire, and so he used Rock Slide to win against Thunder. For the next two Pokemon, ChatGPT just spam Crunch, the most reliable that he has with Obsidian. Until now, Bruno wasn't any real threat for ChatGPT. Next is a Horsear. ChatGPT decided to use Flamethrower. I don't know what he's doing. He's throwing. Horsear used Dragon Tanks to set up for his next attack. Obsidian again used Flamethrower, but Horsear almost ended our run, and Obsidian now is left with 8 HP against a water type. Here, ChatGPT tried to use Crunch and didn't deal enough damage. Here it was so lucky that he didn't get hypnotized by Polydor. And somehow he was able to defeat Bruno with 8 HP. Obsidian is carrying ChatGPT to victory. Next, it was Agatha. Agatha started with his kid. As always, ChatGPT decided to use Crunch. Pokemon was a Lapras that can cause trouble to ChatGPT. Decided to use Rock Slide. Thankfully, Lapras didn't attack us and used Rain Dance. So, with more spamming of Rock Slide, Obsidian was able to defeat Lapras. Next was a Marid, a weak Pokemon against Obsidian. So, by just spamming Crunch, we were able to defeat it. Next, it was a Ghastly, so a Crunch would do the job. For Zigzagoon, for first time in the run, he will use Earthquake. So Agatha was defeated and it was one of the easiest Elite 4 members. Next battle was Lance. He started with an Octowl and Obsidian was able to defeat him very easily using a Rock Slide. The next Pokemon was a Seaking. So ChatGPT decided to use Crunch. Seaking didn't deal enough damage to Obsidian using Water. So with a second Crunch, we were able to defeat Seaking. Next, it was Chikorita. So Obsidian just used Flamethrower and one-shot it. Next, it was Embanet. So Obsidian just used Crunch and was able to defeat him. Then Lance used Shovel. Sherbet again is weak to crunch, so just one crunch and finish the job. Seems that Obsidian won against all Elite 4 members. ChatGPT last battle will be against his rival, Blaze, and he starts with Delcati. He starts with his favorite move, just spamming crunch. And it worked. Then ChatGPT decided to use a rock slide, a not very effective move against Marowak. Marowak used Bone Rush and deal a lot of damage to Obsidian. Thankfully, ChatGPT decided to use Earthquake rather than Rock Slide, and it worked. Next is an Atu. So, of course, ChatGPT decided to use Crunch and one-shotted Natu. His next move was a Rock Slide and one-shotted Noctowl. Seems that Obsidian can solo the whole battle and become the new champion. For the Hypno fight, Obsidian just spam crunch, while Blaze, our rival, was using full restores to keep Hypno alive. After many crunches and many full restores, Obsidian was able to defeat Hypno. One Pokemon remained for ChatGPT to defeat to become the Pokémon Champion. Obsidian is low with 45 HP and in love. Seems that this time Delcati is not giving up, and it's a close battle. Obsidian has 25 HP, he's confused and in love. Delcati put Obsidian to sleep. That is a big problem. Obsidian must survive. Obsidian is left with 9 HP. If Obsidian does not wake up now, it will be the end of the run. Obsidian was able to wake up and use Crunch. Finally, Obsidian landed the last crunch and was able to defeat our rival Blaze. Our verdict: ChatGPT can beat a Nuzlocke. You just need to have a Tyranitar with him. What will be our next challenge? Comment below and subscribe.